Hello, the Watchman here. The main thing you want to do when you're servicing a watch is to reduce the friction on it, on the parts, i.e. the wheels, the pivots, etc. Um, the first part of reducing friction is to clean the watch, because obviously if you've got a load of shite knocking around the watch, it's going to impede the movement of the parts. So I've got this Smith's Astral jump hour watch. I think this is like, I don't know, could be late 1960s, early 1970s, so it's 50 odd years old. It's not working, there's a problem with the balance, but I got a donor movement with a, well, I think it's a decent balance, so we'll put it on and see what happens. I've just took the dial off, and we're on the dial side. I'm just taking the minute disc off and the hour disc. These screws that hold these down are shoulder screws, and they need lubricating as well. I'll show you exactly what sort of lubrication goes on them, as with the rest of the movement as well. This I'm just using the hand levers to get this finger wheel off. It turns the hour wheel, and the jump hour spring that can come off. These springs like as old as the watch, so it's probably lost a bit of tension over time and doesn't work as well as it did when it was new, obviously, but it should be okay. Now I'm taking the keyless works off and the motion works off. They're covered by this sort of retaining plate that keeps it's like a bridge for the minute wheel and the setting lever. It comes off there. There's sort of the yoke and the setting lever spring in one there. There's a setting lever. There's the winding pinion. Minute wheel. And a clutch wheel. That's the motion works and the keyless works taken off. We're back on the watch side, and this is actually the donor movement. I'm just taking the movement off of this one. I'm going to compare it to the one I've just taken off, the movement we're using. But first I want to make sure this one's fine. I'm just looking to make sure it looks okay. It's all the rings are concentric. The impulse jewel, well, it's not a jewel, but it looks in good order. And as you can see, the one I've taken off, I don't know whether you can see, but it's got the hairspring snapped just before the stud, so you know it's got to go. And I can get rid of the old one that's not working and use the new one. And we're back on the movement we're using. I'm just taking the pallet bridge off, pallet fork bridge, pallet fork screw. And one quick tip is if you're like, I'm reasonably new to this, but if you're new to this, then when you take a part off, just put the screw back in the hole. That way you're not going to lose the screw, and you know exactly what screw goes where. That's a handy little tip. I found that very useful. I'm taking the barrel bridge off now. There you go. Comes off nice and easy. Now the crown wheel, which has got a reverse thread on it, so take it off. To undo it, you turn it to the right. This movement is called a pillar construction because all the parts sort of sit on pillars. There's no barrel arbor in the mainspring barrel, and all the parts just sort of pivot around these pillars. I'm taking the the screw out of the train bridge and the screw out of the click. I'm taking the click off now. And there's the train bridge coming off. There's the click spring coming out. The third wheel. Fourth wheel. And the escape wheel. I'm just losing my hand levers again to get the barrel off the pillar that it pivots round. And there's the second wheel. And this second wheel is interesting. It's got a slip clutch. It's called a slip clutch second wheel. And just put the balance on. You don't have to You don't have to worry so much about where the impulse tube is. I had a quick look, and it's in between the. It's more or less in between the two pins where the pallet fork sits, but it's got a regulator on it anyway, so you can regulate the beat error as well as the speed. There's the mainspring. It's not in bad nick, so I'll use it again. It's my watch anyway, so it doesn't matter. I'm just doing up the balance now, just to get it ready for the cleaning machine. A quick turn, and that looks fine. There they are out of the cleaning machine, all looking nice and shiny, ready for action. All good and clean. I'm just putting a bit of 8-200 grease, natural grease on the mainspring to lubricate it. You don't want to put too much on. I'm just putting a dab each side of the barrel. Once again, to reduce friction. I'm just putting the mainspring back in by hand. If it's not an automatic, I rarely use the mainspring winders. But you do need your mainspring winder if you're going to reuse an automatic mainspring. And there's the lid back on, and that's ready for action. Now this is that second wheel again. I'm just putting a bit of D5 around the slip clutch part of it, because that drives the second wheel drives the two time discs on the dial side, the hour and the minute discs, and that can go back in now. I'm just putting a bit of D5 on the pillars, on the barrel pillar, top and bottom. And on that goes. Third wheel can go on. And a fourth wheel. And the escape wheel. Just making sure they're seated correctly. And the train bridge can go back on. And in a second, once I've got these wheels in the correct position, you'll just see the train bridge drop down. There we go. That's a good indication that you've got everything seated correctly. I'm just making sure now. Give it a quick turn, and everything seems good. Yeah. So that can be screwed down. So far so good. Everything's going quite nicely. There's no reason to put any D5 on that because it doesn't move. But why not? Now we can screw the barrel bridge down. Yeah, 2 screws in it. Now a click spring can be installed. Always be careful with these springs, they can take off and they're so small, they're really hard to find. That's gone in okay though. I'm just putting a bit of D5 around the pillar where the crown wheel pivots around it. And putting that reverse thread screw back on. It's quite a big screw. Normally they've got 3 stripes indicating that it's a reverse thread, but this one hasn't. And just putting a bit of a D5 on the pillar where the click spring, where the click sits. Screw that down. Just a quick test, and that looks to be working great. Nice and smooth. And the pallet fork can go in. The pin lever pallet fork. It's an older type pallet fork. And the pallet fork bridge can go on. Make sure that's seated correctly. Just take your time when you're doing this because you don't want to apply any downward pressure on any of the pivots until they're correctly seated or you'll break them. I'm happy with that, so I'll screw it down. I'm just putting a bit of 8300 natural grease on the back of the movement where the winding pinion presses against it, just to reduce the friction. I'm just putting a bit of 8300 grease on the winding pinion itself. The clutch wheel can go in, and I haven't put any lubrication on that because it transfer lubrication from the winding pinion. Now the stem can go in, the winding stem. I'm just putting a bit of 8300 grease on the clutch wheel where the yoke sits, and I've just put a bit of 8300 grease on the pillar of the setting lever. Now the yoke can go back in. The yoke comes sort of setting lever spring. And that's just held in by friction. No screws for that. Now I'm putting a bit of D5 on the minute wheel post and 2 dabs where it sits on the movement, and that just pinged off, so I'm just putting that back on again. Now a bit of D5 on the pillar where the finger wheel sits. And there's that sort of cover plate, sort of acts as a minute wheel bridge, and it keeps the setting lever in place as well. It's got a bit of pitting on the top of it there, but that's not dirt, that's just sort of where it's obviously had a bit of moisture on it at one time or another, and it's just eating into the surface of it a bit, but it's not a problem. It's got 2 screws, and we get them screwed down now. That's how the finger wheel works, and it's working well. I'm just putting a bit of grease where the setting lever makes contact with the yoke, just to make the when you pull the stem out, the winding stem, just to make sure that it's nice and smooth and not too jerky. I'm just putting a bit more on there. That looks fine. I'm just clearing any excess off with a bit of Odico, which is watchmaker's putty. Now I'm taking the bottom jewel off, the bottom balance jewel off. This is a KIF shock system on this. Excuse me, and I'm just cleaning the jewel off with a bit of alcohol on a cotton bud. And I'm just using a bit of Mobius 9010. You want it bang in the middle of the jewel. You don't want it touching the sides. You want to keep it well away from the sides. And there we are, just so it's in the middle, because if it's on the side, it'll all be dragged off to the side and you won't have none where you need it, i.e. on the pivot of the balance. You can go back on the movement now. There we go. That's the shock spring back. Now I'm just using Mobius 9010 on the escape wheel and the pallet fork. And D5 on the rest of the wheels. There's the other disc going back on. Yeah, I'm just putting a bit of D5 on the shoulder screw. That acts as a pivot for the outer disc. And just holding it in place while I screw it down. Job done. You can see how that works now. There you go. A bit of D5 on the shoulder screw for the minute disc as well. Put that to one side while I get the disc in place. That screw can go in. And screw it down. There's the jump out spring. It's got one little screw. Screw that down nice and tight. And let's see how that works. Yeah, not too bad. pretty good. The dial can go back on. Let's give it a quick test. Yeah, pretty good. I'm just tightening up the dial screws here. They press against the legs, the dial legs, so the dial feet, so and that just keeps them in place. I'm just lubricating the escape wheel now. I'm putting a bit of 300 natural grease onto the pallet fork and transferring that onto the escape wheel a bit at a time. I've done this 2 or 3 times, so but obviously I didn't want to bore the pants off everyone. And now I'm just putting a bit of Mobius 9010 on the escape wheel pivot and the pallet fork pivot, and I'm using D5 for the rest of the pivots. On goes the New Balance, or the old New Balance. Hopefully that'll start up with a bit of a turn. And away she goes. Look at that, it's absolutely firing. Good it looks like it's good amplitude. We'll wait and see till we get it on the time grapher. But at first look, it looks pretty good. Now I'm taking the balance off, the balance jewel off. Once again, you don't want to drop anything onto the hairspring, so I'm using a bit of Rodico on this side, just to make sure I've got it firmly and it don't drop back into the hairspring and cause some damage. Once again, Mobius 9010, bang in the middle of the jewel, not on the sides, in the middle. That looked perfect, so I was happy with that. Now we can put it all together, flip it over, and get it back on the movement. And I put it back on, and then I put the shock spring on, and it pinged off, and it took me an hour to find it. And when I did find it, I put it on and didn't turn the camera on, so we missed that little bit, but that's not a problem. Now we're putting it on all together. But first I should have showed you the time grapher. You've got amplitude of 335 degrees, which is great. You've got no beat error at all, which is fantastic. And as far as the accuracy concerns, you'll neither plus or minus, you're 0. So you can't argue with that, really. That's pretty damn good. I'm really pleased with that. I mean, this whole watch is performing well for us. Now we can put it back into the case. Let's put the stem in, the winding stem. Make sure it's in there correctly. Now we've got this sort of plastic retaining ring that just keeps the movement in place, stops it moving around in the case. It's quite a big case for a small movement, so let's get it all centered. And once that goes down, that'll hold it fantastic. And then you've got this stainless steel cover that goes over the top of it, and that is safe as ours. It's nice and secure within the case. Now the back of the case can go on, and that's just friction fitted, so we can just press it in. There we go. Now I just wanted you to see how the jump hour watch actually works when it's all put together. If you've got the patience, it's worth it, because it just shows you how it all comes together. Let's just sit and watch. This is speeded up 4 times, by the way. There we go. Perfect. Can't argue with that. And it's a beautiful old watch. Lovely. Thanks for tuning in. See you again next time, hopefully.